All right, what's up, y'all? It's your boy Sean Kell. Welcome back to the channel. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe because that's what grows the channel. Personally, I wanted to come on here really quickly and talk about the educational system, school system, whatever you want to call it, in the United States or in the USA. As of right now, I believe that there are a lot of teachers giving their thoughts and opinions on social media because there is an issue that needs to be fixed in our school systems. Now, as far as what that issue is up for debate. I want y'all to watch these videos, and then I'm going to come back and give my personal opinion on the school system as a teacher and what I think could be improved or what I think is working. And yeah, let's watch these videos.
I'm done.
You quit?
You're not going to be disrespected by anybody. I don't know who you people think you are, but you don't treat anybody like this. It's not funny.
I think that like 90% of the problems with education in America, like the literacy crisis, the teacher shortage, all that stuff could be solved if we required all administrators to have at least 1 year experience teaching in the classroom post 2020. And gosh, my cold sore, I hate it.
Something is in the water because the behavior is not changing. Something is in the water because the behavior is not changing. When I first started teaching 7 years ago before COVID, I could threaten to call home and they would stop. I could call home and they would stop. This year, baby, I'm calling home. I'm changing seats. I'm giving warnings. I'm writing them up. And it's just like they come back and they do it again. And then the attitude on them. Why do I have to ask you who you're talking to? Why do you not know who you're talking to? And then they always want to be like, oh, this teacher's mean. That teacher's mean. Are they? Are they mean? Are they really? Or you just don't understand boundaries, okay? Because this is not a playground. Who are you?
So Kevin O'Leary and many of you believe that the problems with the schools are the teachers. Understand this. Teachers are under a strict certification process. Most of them love what they do. And the bottom line to it is they became teachers because they want to teach. Now, there are some bad teachers. But I can assure you, if you take a look at any district in America, no matter where you are, as the parent goes, the students go. The better the parent, the better the school. Because parents are the largest influence in a child's life. If you can't get your child to flush the toilet at home and put their phone up and go to bed at 8:30, or if you can't get them to simply follow instructions, simple instructions, what do you think we're going to do with a class of 25 of these kids, in which 19 of them are going to do exactly what I said? They're not going to follow specific instructions. So a huge portion of our day, whether it be high school, middle school, elementary, is telling Johnny to stop, telling Johnny to quit, telling Johnny to be quiet, telling Johnny to pull the pencil out of his nose, telling Johnny to do things over and over and over again times 19. If you want to fix the school, fix the parenting, and everything will be fine. But until we have better parents, school will not change. I don't care if you get rid of the Department of Education and throw $50 billion at the problem. It's a parental issue because the kids that don't have supervision and great mentoring at home, they will not listen to a teacher no matter what we say or what we do. All right? So fix the parents and the schools will follow. Have a great day.
Young Gen Z teachers are talking about the poor behavior of Gen Alpha students, and some of y'all are finally starting to believe us when it comes to how much we've missed the mark on raising these kids right. Because I have gray in my hair and I'm 36 years old, people tend to tune me out as soon as I open my mouth when I start talking about these issues we're seeing in the classroom with our kids these days. So before I go on, why don't we review some of the evidence from some of the other creators on this app who might be a little bit more of a relatable age.
This is my folder of crying teachers, and they are confused and frightened by the behavior of Gen Alpha. They're saying Gen Alpha is defiant, aggressive, disrespectful, and rude.
Having to teach and work with you guys as children has been the most traumatic experience of my life. They don't respect any authority. You ask them, can you stand in your designated spot? They're telling you no and shut up. They're throwing things at each other. They're throwing things at other people, other classmates. You say, can everybody sit in their spot? I don't want to. I'm not doing that. You don't get to tell me what to do. You're not my mom.
Like, I'm not even trying to be funny, but these kids are... I'm going to just say this. I teach 7th grade. They are still performing on the 4th grade level.
I'm a middle school teacher. I'm also 22 years old. And I will tell you, by far, we are doomed. Like, these kids do not care. Like, I have kids, all they want to do all day long is get high.
I need to ask millennials, why are your kids so awful? And more importantly, why do you think it's so funny? Your kids cannot read. They cannot write. They are ill-mannered.
I've been trying to sound the alarm about Gen Alpha students and their poor behavior in their classrooms, as well as their literacy problems, since May of last year. But because of my age and how I look, every time I make a video about these topics, I'll get people that have never worked with kids or have never spent a day in the classroom as an educator give me lines like, well, you're just old and jaded. If you don't like it and you can't handle it, quit and find another job. Kids have always been like this. Nothing's new in 2023. And then we've got the droves of people that are trying to blame it on COVID and trying to blame it on the lockdown, us not having any sympathy or empathy for students with special needs, even though I never talk about those types of students. And I'm always talking about general population students and the fact that this is an overarching problem with every single kid, even the high achievers, even the ones that don't need IEPs, even the ones that are highly socialized and have a lot of resources coming from home. Teachers that have been in this for 1, 2, 3 years are seeing it and they are talking about it. Teachers that are veterans like me that have been in the classroom for over a decade or 2 or 3 or nearing retirement are also saying the same thing. Your children are missing the mark on discipline. They're missing the mark on education standards. They're missing the mark on literacy. They're missing the mark on socialization. We can blame it on COVID. We can blame it on iPads raising our kids. We can blame it on the fact that kids don't socialize with each other enough. We can blame it on the economy and the fact that parents don't have time to help their kids learn how to read or don't have time to take their kids to the park anymore. We can blame it on all of those things, or we can blame it on none of those things. But it sounds like we're starting to get into a consensus here amongst educators that we have a real problem. And some of y'all need to stop making excuses. You're just blaming the kids. You're just so mean. No, we are not. The problem is that we have this generation of parents that doesn't want to take accountability for not doing what they need to do to raise kids that are self-sufficient, that are socialized, or kind. And no, it's not the kids' fault. And why does it seem like teachers are the only ones that are talking about it? The people that are talking about it are the ones that work with the kids and not the ones that are raising the kids. Gen Alpha have been raised to believe that they are grown folks, that they can speak to whoever they want, however they want, that violence is the answer. Gen Alpha students are raised in a world that tells them that it's okay to be as nihilistic and individualistic as possible, that they don't have to care about anything or anyone, that they can speak to anybody however they want to speak to them, even though they're only 10, 11, or 12 years old. Most importantly, they are being conditioned to believe that they are immune to consequences, that there are no consequences to their poor behavior, to their rudeness, to their lack of care in completing tasks and doing well in school. They just don't care. Is this us demonizing kids for fun? No, it's not. The people that are talking about this are genuinely concerned. We are frightened for these kids. And if you're sitting back saying, oh my God, poor babies, like, I wish you would just quit talking about them because you're just being mean and it's not even helpful because kids are just kids, you are doing them absolutely a disservice to their future. This is not just an old people complaining about young people problem anymore. Young people in Generation Z, young teachers who are seeing the same thing I'm seeing with my 2 eyeballs, are talking about the same thing. You can call it an old folks complaining about young folks thing. Why are you demonizing millennial parents? Why are you demonizing Gen Alpha kids? Or you can step back and look at it from our perspective and say, gee, I wonder why there's so many people talking about the same thing. I wonder why there's so many teachers that are concerned about the same thing. We cannot even begin to talk about solutions until we admit there's a problem. Most of you whom are parents, because y'all are the ones that matter, I don't even care about the ones who are just trolls and are sitting back saying, school doesn't matter, yap, yap, yap. Mayor of Yapville, who cares? I don't care about you either. I'm talking to parents. If you are not ready to admit that there's a problem here, we cannot get anywhere near even talking about the solutions. We cannot raise a generation of kids that are this tuned out, that are this rude, that are this violent to each other, to adults, to people younger than them. We just can't do it.
Y'all, I am so tired. I mean, so tired that my pinky toe is tired. My eyelashes are tired. My ears are tired. My kneecaps are tired. My whole everything is tired. I am so tired that I don't even think I can go to sleep. All I can do is just lay here. That's what kind of tired I am. If you have educator friends, pray for them because they are all tired. Have a good night, y'all.
So personally, my opinion when it comes to the school system, y'all watch the videos, y'all see everybody's opinions and things like that from different various people. Personally, my opinion is that, there's a lot of things that are true that are being said about these newer generations, right? We do have a lot more kids struggling with reading. We do have a lot more kids struggling with basic things that they should already know, um, but they don't. And that's just the reality of the situation. We also struggle with a lot of kids dealing with behavior. There's a lot more disruptive behaviors, a lot more violent behaviors, a lot more outbursts, a lot more um, chaos in these classrooms. But I don't think it's just this generation. I don't think it's just these kids. I don't think I think for a lot of kids, there's a lack of support at home. I think for a lot of kids, there's a lack of structure at home. But it's not every child and every parent and every family. There are some really great parents out there that really do support their children and want the best for their children and actually follow up with additional support to support what's being learned in the classroom. I think there's a lot bigger issues than what generation is out of control and things like that. Because I see a lot of people saying, well, this new generation, Generation Alpha, Gen Z, blah, 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 blah. For me personally, as a teacher, and this is not me bragging or nothing, but as a teacher, I go into a school and the first thing that I get rid of in my classrooms personally is the behaviors.
And when it comes to behavior students, you got to pull them aside from the jump. From the day that they walk in your classroom, because you already heard about them from last year. So on the very first day that they come in your classroom, you got to pull them aside and be ready. It's what you tell them. You are going to be great. You are going to do amazing things in this classroom. I cannot wait to see all of the great work that you do. I cannot wait to see how helpful of a student you are. You are going to be amazing. They already know that they have a behavior problem. Long story short, these kids be knowing when everybody in the school knows their name because of their behavior. Listen, this is my expectation, and my expectation of you is positive. And so if I'm already telling my student that I'm expecting positive behaviors from you, a lot of times they step up to the plate and they give you those things versus a teacher expecting them to behave terribly. They're going to do exactly what you're expecting of them. Does this always work? Absolutely not. Some of these kids really like that, and it doesn't matter who they have. But we are on week 3 and it's working.
I don't play. Like, I'm not playing with y'all. If we got to stop the instruction altogether and we have to spend these first few weeks dealing with behaviors and we got to nip those out the bud, that's always what I target first. Because once you have a classroom that is smooth, cohesive, the kids know not to play with you, not to try you, not to do stuff like that, then you can implement structure and foundation. And then once you do that, then the classroom just flows. And so that method has worked for me. It worked for me when I taught 6th grade. My 6th graders were very well behaved to the point where the principal was basically fighting for me to stay because she did not want to lose me on that team. Because when she came into my classroom, I remember like specifically one time she came to my classroom and she was like, because the classroom was quiet. Now this is a class, this is when I was long-term subbing, and this was a class that went through like 3 or 4 teachers, and it was just out of control. So when I came in there, the first week I came in and I observed the previous teacher that was leaving for like a week and just seeing what the kids were doing wrong, what the teacher might be able to improve on, stuff like that. And I just studied what was happening. So when I got into the role, it was easy for me to nip these behaviors, you know what I'm saying, and just get the classroom to be structured and flow. And this is not me bragging or anything. And then even in the fourth grade class that I taught as an actual teacher, not as a long-term sub, we won an award for the best behaved class. My classroom received compliments constantly because I have a routine for everything. I am big on routines. I don't play when it comes to routines. And my kids know that I'll go toe to toe with you. You want to try to run your mouth and go back and forth with me, I'm not too grown to go back and forth with these kids, because you have to show these kids that I will come down to your level and show you who's running things. I mean, I know that sounds crazy to some people, but anybody who's a teacher, they understand, like, you got to go toe to toe with these kids. And I get why teachers are leaving, because a lot of teachers are like, I'm not going toe to toe with no child. I'm not dealing with that. I'm not going back and forth with no kids to gain respect. I shouldn't have to deal with that. And I agree with those teachers. They should not have to come into the classroom and spend the first like few weeks to the first half of the year or whatever fighting for their life with your kids. Your kids should already know how to behave. But for me, I'm not too petty to go back and forth with your kid and let your kid know that you're not running nothing up in here. I don't know what you are used to in your previous grades or with your previous schools or whatever, or what you get away with at home or whatever in previous classrooms, but it's not going down with me. Like, we not going out like that. So for me, they know I'm not playing with them, and they learn that very quickly if they don't know that. I always used to say, there was one teacher that I had, I was a teacher assistant before, and she always used to tell the kids, like, yeah, you got crazy, but my crazier is crazier than your crazy. Allow me to show you. And she kept the structure, and she got high scores, and the kids grew as far as their academics. Like, she always had high scores to the point where she became an MCL, multi-classroom leader of multiple classrooms, because she was that good. And then I also observed the teacher as a teacher assistant, and I think that's what helped me a lot. I was a teacher assistant for like 4 years while I was going to college, and that helped me a lot to observe the different kinds of teachers and how they operate. I saw that teacher, but then I also saw a teacher that never raised her voice, never did any of that, but she would still go toe to toe with these kids and put them in their place. And they loved her as well. They loved that teacher, and they loved the teacher I'm telling y'all about that was like, my crazier is crazier than yours. And so I just do a combination of the two. I follow up with tough love and accountability, but then I also follow up with relationship building and letting them know that I care, and pulling them one on one and helping them and showing them that I'm here for them, and then having those real conversations. And so, yeah, nowadays teaching used to be where you could come in, you would teach the lesson, kids knew how to behave. These days, not only do you have to be a teacher, but you also have to be a behavioral specialist, and you also have to be a computer technician. And so I've learned to just deal with that. And so when I come in, and I get teachers not wanting to deal with it, that, or feeling like they shouldn't have to. So I totally understand walking away from the profession. But nowadays, my advice to anybody that's becoming a teacher is that not only are you the educator, making sure the instruction is being taught, not only are you the behavioral specialist dealing with people's feelings and emotions and the things that they're going through, and having to give them space to work that out, and just dealing with all kinds of behaviors, from this person who's depressed, this child who's always angry, this child who's mellow, this child who's always happy. You know what I'm saying? You get all these different kinds of emotions and feelings and things like that. And a lot of that is it's a lot. It becomes too much for a lot of teachers. And I get that, because there have been many times where I felt overwhelmed. But I just know this is my calling, so I'm not really deviating from it at this point in time. Maybe the future holds something else for me, but I actually enjoy teaching because I enjoy behaviors. I don't know why, but I enjoy dealing with behaviors. I enjoy um, really figuring out what's going on, how can we fix it, what are the solutions, what are you going through, let's walk through it, let's talk about it. If I got to hold some kids back during recess and talk through their emotions, because that's more important to getting them to be more conducive in the classroom, that's what I'm going to do. If I got to pull them during lunch and sit and eat lunch with my students, or a small group of my students, or one-on-one, and really put in that extra time to figure out what's going on, that's what I'll do. Because it's very important for me to make sure that they are emotionally and mentally okay, so that they can be academically successful. So I've never had a problem, and I've always had like schools try to fight to keep me, because when it comes to behavior, I always tell people who interview me, like, when I get in that classroom, behavior is not going to be an issue. So as long as you as an administration support me in that first month when I'm nipping out these behaviors and getting them handled, then we're going to be fine. But if you can't do that, then this is not the job for me. I just keep it real, because you have to understand that as a teacher, well, administration has to understand that as a teacher, I'm coming in here to fix what's broken, so that my classroom can function. Now, should I have to do that as a teacher? No, I shouldn't necessarily have to do that. But in the times we're living in now, it's just something that we got to do as teachers now. It's an added on stress, it's an added on task. And again, I understand why teachers are saying I'm not dealing with that and I'm done, because they shouldn't have to, especially veteran teachers who are used to have seen the other side where kids already know certain things. And yes, you have one or two that are disruptive, but they know how to act, how to behave, how to be respectful towards a adult, how to appreciate authority and things like that. And then having supportive parents. Teachers who have been around that long, they know what it looks like when parents and staff and administration and all of that are cohesive and working together for the betterment of the child. So when they're now having to deal with these new kids and they're not getting supported, but instead cussed out by parents, they're not getting appreciated, but instead being blamed by administration and having all of these professional developments that do absolutely nothing and not getting that support, I can get why those veteran teachers are like, yo, what is this? Like, this is not what we used to do. I'm out of here. I totally understand that. And I definitely understand like new teachers coming in like, whoa, this is not for me. I just wanted to educate. I didn't want to have to deal with your violent child or your child cussing me out and calling me out of my name, because I've had that too. I long-term sub for 8th grade and I had a child call me out my name. And again, I went toe to toe. And then after we went toe to toe, I saw the security walking through the hallway. I said, come and get this child and remove them, because either they're going to leave or I'm going to leave. And a job is not important enough for me to be disrespected and called out my name. And so they removed that child from the classroom. And that child, did they walk of shame out of my classroom and into the office. I don't know if they called the parents or not, but I stand 10 toes down on respect. If your child is going to be disrespectful, your child's going to have to go or I'm going to go. And that's just that. And that's just my mentality. Like I'm not playing with your children, because I'm not going to be disrespected by somebody that's not even 14, 15, 15. Like you're a child. My point is, you're a little kid. You're not going to sit here and disrespect me. It's not going to happen. So luckily I had an administration at that school that supported me, and the parents were also supportive, because they don't want their child to be disrespectful. They want their child to be educated, especially if I sit down and I talk to them. I say, hey, the reason this happened is because we have to establish respect. I want your child to be successful. I want them to be able to come to me and be able to improve their grades and work hard and do all those things, because I genuinely care about their future. But at the same time, I have to establish authority. We can't have back and forth in the classroom. It's not going to happen. So, fortunately, I was in a good situation at that school. But there are nightmare schools. This is not me invalidating any experience that any teacher has had. I totally understand it. But anyway, sorry about the tangent, but back to my main point. We have to address what the bigger issues are. It's not just this generation. It's not just these teachers and people saying that these teachers need to be built stronger or need to do better or need to tolerate disrespect and stuff like that. The bigger issues are things like, for one, why do we have 30 plus kids in one classroom? That's outrageous. I strongly feel like we have to figure out a way to combat this, because we can't. How do you expect the teacher to effectively teach with 30 something kids? Now, I've done it, but it's extremely taxing, extremely mentally, physically, emotionally taxing to make that many kids progress. And sometimes there are those pockets of children that fall through the cracks. And to prevent that, we need to bring down these numbers. There was one time in my life where I left public school and my parents tried to put me in a private school. Now, my parents don't have lots of money. They were teen parents and stuff like that. But they tried their best to put me in a private school thinking that would help. Because we were dealing with a lot of the behavior stuff, a lot of the attitudes, a lot of back and forth, a lot of chaos, stuff like that. And so they put me in a private school for like a year. It was like a year. And in those classrooms, it was only like no more than like 15, 20 max. And I noticed that even as a child, that in those classrooms, things flowed better, things functioned better, more stuff was able to get done, because we weren't bombarded like a bunch of sardines in one pack. You know what I'm saying? It was room to breathe, to move around the classroom. You didn't have 30 plus kids in one classroom. So that's a big problem for me. Stop putting so many kids in one classroom. That's a huge issue for me. Secondly, administration, you have to support your teachers. And if you feel like there's something that your teacher needs to grow in, you need to provide them the resources, the MCLs, the whoever's, the behavioral interventionalists. They need to come in and they need to support that teacher and not just tell the teacher what they can do to improve, but actually model it and then have the teacher model it, and then they just work through it together. I'm really appreciative of the coaches that would come in. I had a math coach come in while I was teaching math. And this was like my first year as a teacher. And she was telling me ways, like she would stop me mid-lesson and be like, because I told my students, like, listen, this person is here to help me to be a better teacher for you guys so that you can learn more. So there's gonna be times throughout the lessons where she might stop me and show me a different way. And I want you guys to be respectful, and I want you guys to da 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 da, and gave the whole spiel. And so I had coaches that were, whoa. Anyway, so there was coach that came in, and I had coaches that would come in and they will really support me. And that's what it looks like when you're supporting your teachers. When you have an administration that sees a problem and they fix the problem by sending in coaches, or they come in personally to help assist, you understand? And they show you different methods and tools and ways that you can improve or do your job more effectively. And then they support you when you hand out consequences. If the administration does not support you when you're handing out consequences, then maybe it's time to relocate to a different school once your contract is over, because that's crazy that you wouldn't want to support your teachers in disciplining children so that they are more productive overall in the classroom and you actually exceed growth. You understand? That doesn't make any sense to me. So for me personally, if I have an administration that is not doing their part, I don't even complain. I finish my contract and then I leave. And if you really just have to go, maybe go to a district that's next to you, and then just hopefully get employment there for that next year and just break your contract. But I would advise not breaking the contract. Just try to stick it out if you can. But I understand teachers leaving and stuff now. I do understand it nowadays. But yeah, that's my spiel. I have a lot more I can say on this topic, but that's all I got for now. All right. Make sure y'all like, comment, and subscribe. Subscribe. Tell a friend. Tell a cousin. Tell an auntie. Tell an uncle. Tell somebody.